I thought I'd make this not just a presentation, but also something that you can leave here with some useful tools. Useful tools that you can actually start to practice anywhere and everywhere in your life to get a better handle on how we respond when our emotions, which are usually our only tool for how do we interpret the world, how do we interpret all these stimuli that come into our lives to determine how to solve a problem, we base it on how we feel oftentimes. And so being more effective at that is helpful, but usually we measure success in terms of our ability to sort out, when we face a challenging situation. We usually think the people who are smarter can figure it out better. How many of you are familiar with what IQ actually is? It's a measurement of how fast your brain can process information. And generally, our brains process information at about the same speed that it was situated by the time we were in our mid-teens. Your IQ is pretty much set as to how quickly your brain can process information. You might be able to, in early life, to shape how well that can do, the connections between the neurons in the brain and how it transfers information across the brain. But essentially, once you're 13, 14 years old, you're not going to bring your IQ significantly higher. But the good thing is that's not important. How fast you process information does not necessarily make you more successful in this world. Certainly, we've had a lot of great discoveries from people who were incredibly intelligent. But that also might tell you, does that make them incredibly successful? Oftentimes, our best business people are not necessarily our smartest people, they are our sharpest people. How many of you would agree? And becoming sharp in life is the ability to process information, but also how to process it in a way that gets you the kind of results you want. Oftentimes, when we encounter situations that create our emotional responses, when your emotions get high, like let's just say when people push your buttons. Have you ever had somebody push your buttons? What pushes your buttons? What would you say pushes your buttons sometimes?
Well, flattery often works with almost anyone.
So in a positive way, if someone flatters you, how does that make you feel about that person?
They're very intelligent.
In other words, you automatically think the best of them and their intentions. If you were in sales, would it be important to have your customer think well of you? It's vital. Have you ever known some people who just don't seem to have that skill? They just don't know how to say something the right way to engender that sort of relationship. So emotional intelligence is very different from IQ. Intelligence, being able to sort through information and come up with a solution, is one aspect of success in life and finding good answers. But actually, emotional intelligence, especially in the workplace, is how you deal with the situations when your buttons get pushed. And emotions sometimes color how you see things. If everybody were to close their eyes and see a giraffe, now of course, you can see a giraffe in your mind because how do you know what a giraffe looks like? How many of you have actually gone someplace and seen a giraffe? You've seen it on TV, you've seen it in the zoo, you know what it looks like. If you close your eyes, let's say if you had no sight and you had a giraffe standing there, could you kind of figure out what it is by someone describing it to you? If they're good at describing it, well, it's got spots and long legs. Well, that lets a few animals happen. And they said, look, have you ever seen that game Password? And they try to describe something and get that person to get or understand what it is you're trying to describe to them. And some people are really good at it, and some people are clueless. You try to describe something to somebody, and they just can't get it, and you explained it the best way possible. What are you thinking about that person at that moment? Are you thinking the best of them? Actually, you might be thinking the worst. How many of us sometimes when we're driving a car, we sometimes have people who come along with us who want to tell us how to drive. Now, why do they want to tell us how to drive? They have a certain judgment about how we drive. Now, we all would agree that we all see things differently. How many of you would agree that no one has the same experiences, the same perceptions, or the same perceptions that you would? And yet, if everyone has a different set of experiences, perceptions, and beliefs, isn't it also true that they could come up with different conclusions than you would? So when they get a set of information and try to determine what it is that is being presented before them, how they should respond to that certain information, they could come up with a different set of solutions than you do. Is that true? Yet how many of us believe, well, they should see it the way I do? We tend to get irritated by people. That's one of the things that pushes our buttons. We sometimes get angry with people. We get frustrated with people. How many of you would agree that when there's irritation, anger, frustration, some of these negative emotions, it makes it hard to see situations and people clearly? Could that also then interfere with the conclusions we have about that person or the situation? And yet, how many of us would agree that you often have to make decisions when emotions can be a little high? Have you ever had to make decisions when you're stressed? Ever have to make decisions when people are pushing you? Ever have to talk to people you don't want to talk to? Be nice to people you don't want to be nice to. Why do you do that? Why would you be nice to a person that you don't want to be nice to? Because you want certain results. And you know that you could manipulate the situation in such a way to get the results you want. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing to manipulate the situation to get the results you want, because if you get the results you want and they like you in response, they feel good about giving you what you want, how many of you would agree that that's very ethical? They get what they want, you get what you want. How many of you have been in situations where you said, oh, I'm going to get what I want and I don't care what they want? Anybody ever have a boss like that? One of the most difficult situations I face in the business world when I'm teaching management is that oftentimes management thinks they give people what they want and they can't understand why they don't get what they want back. So what do they give the employees? Money. You get a job. That's why you should give me what I want. Are there certain people who just don't get that? What gets in the way of them not seeing clearly that if they don't give the boss in the company what they want, they may not keep their jobs, and yet some people don't care? What gets in the way? What do you think? Is it intelligence? Can they say, you know, if I make that boss's life difficult, I'll still get my paycheck? So intelligence doesn't seem to be the problem. What is the problem? Emotions. What emotions tend to get in the way at work?
Pride.
Pride, ego, how you're treated. If you feel that you're not being treated in a way in which you would like to be treated, you're probably not going to give someone what they want. Because what does that create? Not just, if you have pride and someone doesn't stroke your ego, let's say, how do you feel? What's the feeling here? Used? So angry? How about resentment? Can you feel resentful at something like that? When you feel resentful at someone, are you willing to give them what they want? Even if it would give you what you want. No, it supersedes intelligence. So the point that I'm making is that human beings are emotional. There are 3 things I'm going to teach you about human beings and 3 things that you can do to be much more effective as a human being. Human beings are intelligent. That's not necessarily a good thing, because oftentimes we overthink a situation. We put 2 and 2 together and we come up with 6. And yet if you ask them, you say, no, 2 and 2 doesn't equal 6. It does here. I will teach people about emotions and I will say, you know, no one can make you angry. No one can hurt your feelings. How many of you would agree? Oh, you don't know some people I know, is what they'll say. Well, they can push your buttons, yes. But who chooses how you're going to react? You do. We can all agree with that, but how many of us want to blame someone else and say, you made me angry, you hurt my feelings?